Good morning, my friends. I hope you are having a good week so far, and thank you for being with us this morning and joining us for our Bible reflection today. We are continuing our measure through the fantastic and exciting book of 1 Samuel, and so far we've had the call of Samuel, and now Samuel's gone up a few years now, and this is what happens next. So 1 Samuel chapter 4, starting at verse 1, here we go. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. In those days, the Philistines mustered for war against Israel, and Israel went out to battle against them. They encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines camped at Aphek. The Philistines drew up in line against Israel, and when the battle was joined, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the field of battle. When the troops came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord put us to rout today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, so he may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, who was enthroned on the cherubim. The two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel gave a mighty shout, so all the earth resounded. When the Philistines heard the noise of the shouting, they said, "What does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" When they learned that the ark of the Lord had come to the camp, the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "Gods have come into the camp." They also said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has ever happened before. Woe to us, who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, in order not to become slaves to the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Be men and fight." So the Philistines fought. Israel was defeated, and they fled, everyone to his home. There was a very great slaughter there, for the fell of Israel 30,000 foot soldiers. The ark of God was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Phinehas and Hophni, died. A man of Benjamin ran from the battle line and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes torn and with the earth upon his head. When he arrived, Eli was sitting upon his seat by the road watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. When the men came into the city and told the news, all the city cried out. When Eli heard the sound of the outcry, he said, "What is this uproar?" And the men came quickly and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were set, so he could not see. The man said to Eli, "I've just come from the battle. I fled from the battle today." He said, "How did it go, my son?" The messenger replied, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there's been a great slaughter among the troops. Your sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured." When he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell over backward from his neck, from his seat by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died, for he was an old man and heavy. He had judged Israel 40 years. Now his daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant, about to give birth. When she heard the news that the ark of God was captured, that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed and gave birth, for her labor pains overwhelmed her. As she was about to die, the women attending to her said to her, "Do not be afraid, for you have borne a son." But she did not answer or give heed. She named the child Ichabod, meaning the glory has departed from Israel, because the ark of God had been captured, and because her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, "The glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay. So, this is quite complex, but I'll give it my best shot to try and explain. Do my best shot here. Right, the people of God have a problem, but they don't really see what the problem is. The problem is that they've gone rotten to the core. They've turned their backs on God, and they're not seeking God, they're not wanting God, and the priest, the judge and priest is Eli, who is kind of, as his time has passed, he's old and fat and almost blind at this stage, which may say a bit about his lifestyle, maybe. And he's got two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who are basically corrupt. They get extra stuff. They're monetarily corrupt, and they also, shall we say, they take advantage of the ladies who come to the temple as well. So the whole thing is basically rotten to the core. But God being God, something's happening, and this young man Samuel is brought up, and this chapter kind of prepares the way for Samuel to come to the fore. And then what happens is the Philistines come along and they attack, and the people of God lose about 4,000 people, and they lose quite badly. Now, they don't see what the problem is. What they should have done is repent in sackcloth and ashes and turn to God properly, change their lives and turn to God the way that, and live life God's way and seek God and so on. What they do instead is to say, what we need is the treasure chest. What we need is the ark. And the ark, as I say, is basically a treasure chest. It was a box, and in it were one of your treasures like the Ten Commandments and a few other things. That's what ark means. Ark is a treasure chest. So when Noah had an ark, people tend to think of an ark as a ship. In this case, it's actually a floating treasure chest, which I think is very special. I love that. So what they do, instead of repenting and turning to God properly, they're almost a bit superstitious about it, and they say, what we need is the ark, and they go and get the ark. And with the ark, of course, come Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who probably think that, they can do their priestly bit and probably get lots of money out of it. And then they go into battle again, thinking, because we've got the ark, that'll be enough. And again, they lose very badly. But I think what they don't see is it's not enough just to have the trappings of religion. It's not enough just to have the treasure chest floating around with you. What God's interested in is our hearts. And we need to be actively seeking God, not just the trappings of religion. And again, quite interesting actually is the response of the Philistines. Now, people tend Philistines tend to associate people with who are uncultured and so on. But the Philistines, it's quite interesting here that what their response is. Firstly, is when they see that the Hebrews the Israelites have got the treasure chest, that their response is that they're going to be frightened, and they say, how are we going to fight against these gods that fought against Egypt? I mean, they've obviously heard about what happened under Moses. And in that respect, they kind of respond badly. And of course, they should remember it's God, not gods, who saved them from Egypt as well. Small point, but an important one. But what's interesting also is that the Philistines, although people often tend to think of as uncultured, actually take courage here. They do the right thing, and they say, take courage and be men, O Philistines, in order not to become the slaves to the Hebrews and so on. So actually, they look past the idolatry, and they actually take courage, and they actually act very, very courageously. And so we don't normally give credit to the Philistines, but I'm going to here. They seem to show more courage, if you like, than the people of Israel do here. So the people of Israel think that because they've got the treasure chest, they're going to win the battle. And when what they should be doing is actually looking to God. And of course, having the treasure chest isn't enough, and the Philistines win again. And this time, 30,000 people die. The Israelites just lose 30,000, and things go very badly. And then, of course, you get this man of Benjamin who kind of comes back with the news. He's the harbinger of the bad news that the war's gone badly and so on. And you get this interesting conversation between him and Eli. This Eli, as I say, this man he's now 98 years old. He's ruled Israel for 40 years. He's the priest. He's got his sons are corrupt and so on. And he's kind of sitting there on this chair. And it's quite interesting because the messenger tells him that his sons have died. And he seems to take that on the chin. But then he tells them, then the Benjaminite tells Eli that the ark of God has gone. And at this point, Eli sort of falls off his chair, breaks his neck and dies. Because I think at this point, Eli probably realizes, I suspect he'd given up on his sons years ago. I mean, he tries to reason with them in the previous chapter and gets absolutely nowhere. They're not interested. And Eli knows just how far they've strayed. He must have known what they were up to. And Eli, in a sense, at this point, I think he realized, that the chickens are coming to roost. This was it. And that's why he fell off his chair and died. I know I've got a bit of a soft spot for Eli. He was a man of God. He was an imperfect. He was clearly a very bad father. But he was a man of God, and he did ultimately steer Samuel and steer Hannah. So he was a kind of imperfect priest. I've got a bit of sympathy for him there. And that's in a sense when the change of God happens. But the message of it is that it's not enough just to have treasure chests. It's not enough just to have the trappings of religion. what Hophni and Phinehas and the leaders of Israel didn't realize at the time is not enough to have the trappings of God. You need to have God. We need to be seeking after God, living life God's way, seeking God's will for our lives and doing it his way. It's not enough just to have fancy buildings, fancy boxes and fancy trappings and fancy clothes. What we need is God, and it's him that we must seek. Friends, I hope you found that helpful. Enjoy it again if you want to. It's first time in your chapter 4. Great chapter. God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely Tuesday and more soon.